everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of the Distance Learning Roundtable show on the Incandescent Radio Network and Incandescent TV. I'm Hope Katz-Gibbs, producer of the show, where experts gather to discuss the future of online education. It's an honor to introduce you to our show host, Pat Cassella. He is the executive director of the U.S. Distance Learning Association, and Dean Hoke is the managing partner of the international organization Edu Alliance. We are so thrilled to introduce you to today's guest, Monica Cornetti. She is the founder and president of Sententia, Inc. We know you will enjoy today's interview with this truly amazing woman. Now, Dean, I'm going to kick it over to you to tell us a little bit about Monica.
Sounds fantastic. Let me go through a little bit of Monica's background. She works with individuals and organizations who want to learn how to think playfully to change behavior and achieve objectives. She's a gamification speaker and a designer, and she is considered a guru, I can tell you. Since 2015, she has been #1 on Gamification Guru's Power 100, and in the last couple of years, she's been #1 as the most influential woman in gamification. She is the president of Sententia and leads the company's education and design projects. She's also a game master, which I suppose is not a surprise to you folks, and an annual international conference. I believe it's called GamiCon. Is that right, Monica?
Mm-hmm.
And head of faculty at the Gamified Learning Academy. She's an author of a number of outstanding books on gamification and is co-author, along with Dr. Jonathan Peters, of her newest book, Deliberate Fun, Purposeful Application of Game Mechanics to Learning Experiences. Monica is a graduate of Seton Hill University, with BA in psychology and master's degree in economic development and entrepreneurship from the University of Houston over in Victoria. She and her company are considered the top in the field in gamified and game-based learning, particularly for corporate training and adult education. Some of these clients include Unilever, Walmart, and Microsoft. And when she has downtime, which I can't imagine she has any downtime considering what she's been doing, she's also doing researching gameplay with her grandsons. Monica, welcome to the show.
I am delighted to be here. I was honored to be asked, and even more delighted to be talking, of course, with you as we're involved in distance learning when we start talking about playful design. So you'll be hard pressed to get me to stop at the 30-minute mark. I can tell you that.
Sounds good. Well, Pat,
All right.
you have the opening questions.
Thank you, Dean and Monica. Again, thanks for being here. You know, I'm an old tech guy. Commodore 64 days. You know, floppy disk for my thesis. You know, Doom on the computer. But tell us a little about what's the formal definition of game-based learning? What is it exactly?
Well, if we think about game-based learning, if I can also put up next to it gamification. So gamification uses game elements, game mechanics, and moves that into a non-game context. So if I think about what game elements are, those are just things that make up a game: a dice, a board, cards, spinner, a ball, a bat. Those are elements. The mechanics happen when we put a framework around there of what the rules are, right? So anytime you play a game, there's a win state and the boundaries in which you have to play within to achieve that state, what you're allowed to do to win and what's against the rules. So when you put those rules around the elements, that creates this personality, which makes them a mechanic, which creates this dynamic of play. So if we look at gamification, we're moving all of that into a non-game context. So it might not look like a game at all, but you'd have different mechanics that you would weave in there. For example, you might bring in some dice or a spinner, so you have the mechanic of chance. So I have to do so many tasks before I can reach the top of a level to do an unlock, perhaps to give me a booster to move on to the next level. So it's all happening in a non-game context and doesn't even have to look like a game at all. We're just weaving those mechanics into it. But when we use game-based, that definitely has the look and feel of a game. So it could be something as simple as a deck of cards. And I'm looking around me as I say that, because I have like hundreds of decks of cards, because if you have cards you're selling, I am a sucker and I'm buying them, because I'm like, ooh, how do those work for learning, right? I want to see how are you using that? So it could be a board. It could be, like, for example, when I was working on my master's, I was working at a small business development center. And one of the games that we played was called Lemonade Stand. Because when you think about starting your own business, there's a lot of complexity to that, and it's pretty scary. But most of us can get our heads around starting a lemonade stand. I can do that. I understand. I need some lemons. I need my mom. I need a sign, right? So we made it into a game so that it was teaching our would-be entrepreneurs, small business owners, how to start a small business. So they overlap. And quite honestly, we have it really under one big umbrella now. When we think about gamified, game-based, I'm not a purist that it has to look like a game or can't look like a game. I'm looking at what do we need in this situation right here for our learners? What's going to be most effective to achieve the outcomes that we need?
It's interesting and I think it helps set the framework for my next follow-up.
Okay.
How has this evolved? And in the education market, the adult education market, let's talk about that. And can you give maybe a couple of examples how it has evolved there?
Well, there's a lot of different things there. So first off, of course, we had the pandemic, right? So everyone was doing the pivot. We're pivoting, we're moving online. Some people were already kind of ahead of the game with that. Like I'll use Brown University, for example. They had already started gamifying full semester length courses. So they were totally wrapped in this theme of reprobates and castaways, for example. And so there's art, and the syllabus follows, because it's still a college course, but it follows with the art, and as they level up and as they collect items along the way. So as we think about what's happened with the pandemic, and also though, as we have hit that tipping point in the marketplace of the demographic of younger workers. So we hit the tipping point at 2023 where there was more millennials and Gen Z population. By 2025, there'll be 75%. They have been customizing their life and playing games all their life. So the younger demographic, the pandemic, the desire for a lot of corporate workers to continue to work from home, like no need to go back into the workplace, because we have shown we can do this from home. So if we're doing onboarding, compliance, college level courses, and people are not right there in front of us, how can we use these game elements and mechanics to keep our employees engaged, keep them or get them woven into the culture of our organization if we're doing some kind of onboarding? So we made huge leaps forward in the past 3 years, and I don't anticipate that we're ever going back to what we were. I believe we'll end up with some kind of morph between, and maybe it'll be that hybrid where we actually are doing live as well as sending it out and having people that are there virtually also with us.
I think you're right. I think you hit it right on the head. And, I stopped playing games. I call them games, right? It's been a long time. My generation, I guess, is the generation that's moving out, as you say, Monica, and this new generation is moving in, right? Dean, how about a follow-up for you for next question?
Well, let's kind of keep going on the gamified and game-based learning side of this. Tell me about the approaches that cater to the unique learning preferences of adult learners. What kind of strategies can be employed to ensure the inclusivity and accessibility to these people? Can you give me some examples?
Yeah, first off, I'll go back to, and even with, like I said, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they've been customizing their life, but we've all gotten there, haven't we? I mean, we all have our device that is fully customized to us, and we expect it to be, right? And the moment that interface doesn't work, like, well, this is ridiculous, right? Like, why is that happening? So we've all gotten there, except maybe the veteran generation. Maybe the veteran generation's not there, but those of us who are probably still in the workplace or in education, adult learning, we're expecting that customization. So if we think about accessibility, for example, I need to be able to provide you with choice. So how, where are you? How can I customize this? And we can do that easily through even just a couple questions. I was just right before this, I was doing some reviews. We have 3 different levels of certification, and we were doing what we call our level 2, our journeyman reviews. And one of these young designers, she's customizing this onboarding program. And with 3 simple questions about their role, she now has them in this track for how they're going to be onboarded. I mean, it was just masterful to see, because it's just like if then else, right? So if then or, but it was, as you're looking at what you're looking at on the screen, that experience was hugely personalized for me, right? I didn't feel like, oh, wait, I'm just a number and they're just assigning me to a track. It asked me questions, I answered it, and now I ended up here, and the avatar on the screen is like, yes, that's me. This is the track I'm going. So as we think about where we're going with the future, Dean, is that think about, like, Pat, you mentioned like you started with, the Atari games, but the games now are so hugely personalized that our audience is expecting that from us. So we've got to think through, how are we going to provide that as a solution? And the one caveat I want to give here is that doesn't mean that we have to have hugely expensive software to make that happen.
Monica, let's move it towards distance learning a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that. Many of our listeners and viewers are really directly involved in distance learning, be it a dean or a curriculum designer or what have you. How can gamified and game-based learning be effectively integrated? We started talking a little bit about LMSs right there, but how can they be effectively integrated into the distance learning programs, across pretty diverse educational settings and different demographics, right? Corporate, telemedicine, telehealth, higher education, et cetera.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have to think through, and it's like the nitty gritty, it's like, we're talking about playful and fun, and now I'm going to say something that's really not, right? So we have to start with, what is it we're trying to achieve? So if we're designing for corporate training, I am going to ask you so many questions that you're going to say, just go home now, Monica, because I'm going to take it back to, how is the business going to benefit from this, right? Why? And I call that dollarize it, right? It has to do something with profitability or market share or customer satisfaction. Even at a university level, if I'm like, well, this is a course on economics. And so, but historically, our students have had a difficult time completing that course. So like one of our master craftsmen just designed this course. I'm telling her story for a university that abysmal completion rates. Well, she made it much more game-like, save the world economy, where it felt like they were playing a game. And by using the mechanics that keep me wanting to come back, they came back, but huge accolades from this online university from just this one course of the difference it made in those students' lives. So we've got to go back to, we always design around, who are we designing for and what are we trying to achieve? We're not even looking at learning outcomes yet. Learning outcomes is something that happens further down the road from us. We look at why even add a game in the first place? Let's even go before that. Why are we even teaching this or offering this? Like in the corporate world, is this really, it goes back to, is this really a training or is this a job aid? Is the training going to, how will I know that Dean understands it and is using it, but Pat either didn't get it or is choosing not to, right? Like, how will I know the difference? So it's always based on the objectives and the person we're developing for.
It's truly fascinating. And obviously with games, the interactive component, which is really big for distance learning, digital learning out there, that plays into it really, really well.
The other thing with that is, in corporate America, we would love to believe that sitting a student down at the computer or doing an asynchronous program is the answer. And it absolutely is not. Again, abysmal completion rates. And as we look at who we are as human beings, we need each other. We actually learn better when we're in. So how can we create that even with distance learning? And of course, like if there's anything good that came from the pandemic is the learning of how we can do that, even when we're not co-located, but we're co-located virtually then. So what can we do with that? And that could even be just, the designing the place where it's happening, making that space personalized. Zoom is wonderful. Can we use something else that'll to even enhance that experience where it feels like we're all entering a lodge together and sitting down at a table to learn together?
Metaverse. Now we're talking the metaverse.
Yeah, well, and even more simple than that is even just an app that lets platform. There's low cost and free ones out there where we enter a world together. It's not metaverse, but you do have this little avatar that becomes you, and you move that avatar around. You're not wearing virtual reality glasses. It's not that immersive design, but it's still, you see yourself and you can talk with others, and proximity based, just lots of ideas for how it can be used in our distance designs.
Let's keep running with this. Let's talk more about platform. And what do you see as far as innovative technologies that support gamified and game-based learning for adult learners? What features or functionalities do you think are going to make those more effective? And are we talking Second Life, the metaverse? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, and I think Second Life and I think for some of those, again, there's a huge barrier to entry for that, from that mindset of somebody who says, yeah, but I'm just not a gamer. I just I don't like that. But what if we use some simple platforms like Miro or Google Jamboard or Mural, and we put like elements out there that people can interact with and move around. There's programs like Genially, so that's like GENIAL.LY. They've got tons, it's a freemium model, but they got tons of templates and tools that we can use. You've got programs like we use Remo for our events, where you can make the room look like anything you want it to look like, and people come in and sit down at a table with others. And Topia has this great fun world with all kinds of interactive components to it that you can add in yourself, even going back to using things like PowerPoint. But the whole thing is that how are we going to keep building community, right? Like, how are we going to put people together and share ideas? Because when we need innovation, most of the time that innovation is going to come from some kind of collaborative endeavor rather than somebody just sitting somewhere by themselves. So what platforms can we seek out there that'll help us to bring that collaboration, even when we are literally across the world from each other, but we can come into some space where we can share ideas and concepts.
Yeah. You're seeing it in Zoom?
Yeah, because, we can still use breakouts and we can, we use Zoom a lot. We use Zoom a lot with breakouts. We use, because there's still a ton of creativity and collaboration that can happen in Zoom.
That's right. That's right.
And anybody can access it.
Yeah, that's right. Easy access. I mean, that's how we've morphed over the years. This used to be very difficult to do, a video conference, but now it's easy.
Now it's easy.
Yeah.
And standard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for everybody.
For everybody.
That's right. That's right. Dean, over to you for last question.
Last question it is. We've been talking about gamification and everything, but I kind of like go back to the introduction that I did in the first place. And the word guru kept showing up a lot about you. No, don't look at me that way. It's definitely
scary.
It is a part of you, and I'm curious about it. It wasn't just there. I looked on some recommendations about you. The word guru, effective speaker, presenter, trainer shows up on you continuously. My question really is, why do you think you're so darn good at this? Why are you so effective? Why are you so well regarded as a speaker? What do you think it is?
Well, thank you for that, Dean. I just think it's, I think I just really do have the soul of a teacher. I start getting emotional about it. Like, I have a lot of colleagues who went the direction of keynote speaking. And so they go and they do a 45-minute motivational and they're good. They're darn good.
Yeah.
I love that to me just is a lot of stress. I love when I actually have time and I get to help people build skills, and I see the aha moment that they have, and when the student surpasses the teacher, which happens all the time, and I am so delighted when I see that happen. It's like when I'm blown away by what a student creates. I think it's just, I have this, I'll go back to those grandbabies, when I get to spend 2 weeks with them coming next week. And I said, 2 weeks, we're going to have some rules. Grammy's probably going to have to work a little bit. And they're looking at me like, I don't think so, because they know that Grammy time is 100% play of some kind, right? And I don't mean expensive play. Like, it could be, we make up a game of tennis balls and wash baskets, right? So it's always just this exploration, because what I see in their eyes is this unlimited desire to move towards mastery. They are still young enough that they want to learn. And I focus on adult learning, and I encounter so many adult learners where you see that's been lost over the year. They've got a lot of fears. They are worried that everybody else is going to know something that they don't know. They believe some kind of lie about their ability to learn new things. And so I just enjoy demolishing dry, dull, and ineffective. I just want it gone. And whatever it takes to make that happen, I don't ever see myself not working towards that goal, so that our adult learners in our corporate and higher ed, if there's something they need to learn so they can do it, how can we help them? It's my job. It's my job to help them to learn what they need to learn so they can do something with it. And if they're not learning it, then it's my problem to solve. And how can I solve that problem? By meeting them where they are. And there is no normal, right? Everybody's someplace different. So how can we design to meet people where they are so they can learn something, to do something that will make them successful? Whatever success looks like for them, whatever that picture looks like.
I have to agree with you, particularly about one thing. I think you do have the soul of a teacher. And I think that really comes through even in an electronic world of the things that we do. That's a really important element. And I congratulate you for being able to do that.
Well, thank you, Dean. That's very kind. Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Hope.
Thank you all. That was such an interesting conversation. Monica, of course you're a guru. You're amazing. I talked to so many truly amazing women and they're like, nah, of course. But yeah, making learning fun. What better way to do it? Why haven't we not always been doing that, right?
Because we do it. If you take the fun away, we will find some way to make it fun. I mean, like, even think about driving in rush hour traffic, right? Like, I call it rush hour roulette, right? All of a sudden it's like we're playing a little game to survive the drudgery of what, you wave to your neighbor leaving the neighborhood, but as soon as you're out there on the highway together, now it's like my car against their car, right? Like, right, everything that is drudgery, we will work to make it more game-like. That's just how we're wired. Yeah.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thank you very, very much for being here. We look forward to playing more with you in the future. Thank you, Dean and Pat. And we invite you all to, this will be our August episode, but if you missed the U.S. Distance Learning Association conference this year, please join us next year, USDLA.org. And of course, keep track of Dean and all the things that Pat is doing. I'm Hope Katz-Gibbs. In addition to being the producer on Incandescent Radio and Incandescent TV, I am the proud communications director at USDLA. So we will see you all next month with another amazing guest. Thank you again, Monica. Let's all keep.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll talk to you soon.